want to share with everybody this morning that might be tuning in that I'm happy you're doing it, and I've been telling you for several months now. That means if you're listening, you're likely dealing with some very good hearing, but if you're having difficulty hearing the program, and I think that this is must listen to radio, although I might be a little biased in all of this, but I've been telling you about our friends at Mount Harrison Audiology in Rupert. If you're like most people, you're used to thinking of hearing as something that happens in your ears, but in fact, it's what's between your ears that counts. The brain is where sound comes or becomes information, and your brain has to work harder in order for that to happen. When the sound signals from your ears are compromised, your brain has to work even harder to fill in the gaps. This extra, there we go. I'm starting to have that thing again with my puberty where my voice is cracking. This extra effort can take its toll. Don't let your brain down. Take care of your hearing with the help of Mount Harrison Audiology. Call the office today, 208-312-0957, or check them out online, mountharrisonaudiology.com. Steve Millington is joining us in the studio from the Twin Falls County Republican Party. Just before I get to Steve, I've got to mention this because he's a taxpayer too, and I'm sure most of you are who are tuning in. Households, this comes from Media Research Center. Households that are headed by immigrants from Central America and Mexico received an average of $8,251 in welfare benefits in 2012, 86% higher than households headed by a U.S. native, according to a new report released Monday by the Center for Immigration Studies. Households headed by immigrants from all countries, whether legal or illegal, received an average of over $6,000 in government benefits, 41% higher than the just slightly over $4,000 received by the average native-born household. Based on the estimate, this means American taxpayers shucked out $20 billion in welfare benefits for illegal alien households that year alone. Now, how do illegal aliens collect this? It said they can't, but if they have children born in the United States, those anchor babies, then that means they can collect for the children. So the family can eat quite well, no matter what the law happens to say. Steve Millington, welcome back to our program today.
Well, good morning.
I got actually.
Whoops. Turn me on.
I think we heard you, but just we didn't hear you quite as
Okay, is this better?
That's much better.
Ah, good.
It's just you threw me for a loop with a jacket and tie today.
Sorry about that. I have another appointment a little bit later this morning that required me to, clean up a little bit, so to speak. The thing that's fascinating to me about that is that nobody wants to really address the issue of exactly what are the costs of the illegal immigrant problem. And it's like we have well, I know what it is. The liberal media just says, oh, you can't do that. You're racist, or you're whatever politically correct term they want to shove on us today. It'll change tomorrow, I'm sure. But today and so we don't want to talk about that. We don't want to go there. And they always go back to this idea, well, we're all really immigrants. Our forefathers immigrated to this. Yeah, they did. And they went to work. And they learned English. And they raised children who revered America.
Mm-hmm.
And they learned English. And they got education. And they got jobs. I know lots and lots and lots of Hispanic people who, for whatever reason, are in the United States. And they are successful, hardworking.
I'll grant that for sure.
And they really have taken advantage of the system in America, which allows you to succeed. But so many of these more recent immigrants are basically just dealing drugs or coming here to just sponge off of the $8,200 and whatever dollar, with $8,200 per household. I believe that number was, or was it per individual?
Household.
Per household. So holy cow, that will buy an awful lot of groceries. Just in case you're interested.
$20 billion a year, and you think about, yeah, okay, that's probably, people say, a drop in the bucket, but I think it could buy a lot of, put a lot of kids through college and other various things that we probably need. We've got a caller with us with about a minute to go in this segment.
Good. Let's talk to him. Good morning.
You're on the air.
Good morning. They don't want to count the money or let us know how much it really is, because then they'd have to admit that they're giving money to illegal people that they say they're not, which is covering their own lie. And I saw a good one on Facebook this morning that talked about all the different countries and their punishments for borders. But yet we give our people that cross here illegally, all kinds of stuff. I say we should make a law and whatever. If you get caught here illegally, whatever your country does to people that cross the law is what happens to you.
I got to mention, Steve Millington actually has that list of what happens when you cross their border.
Yeah, I hope I still have it here. Sometimes I try to hang on to those for some time so that we don't. I say to myself, now this may come back. Let's see, what did they say that this would be? Crud. I won't be able to find it now.
Well, but at least he makes a good point that the laws here are pretty lax compared to what happens if you're trying to go there.
You know, I find it interesting. I am not a world traveler, okay? But I have been in some places where we have immigration requirements. And you better have your passport with you at all times. Otherwise, you are just subject to all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, jail in New Zealand wouldn't be fun. Far, far from home.
Nope.
We've got more coming up with Steve Millington. He's the chairman of the Twin Falls County Republican Party. There we go. 46. Bill Colley with you as well at 8:30 on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. Now, the reason I brought this up about illegal immigrants collecting welfare benefits to the tune of $20 billion a year in this country, think about that, how many times that could repave the roads in Idaho, perhaps for the next century. But Steve Millington, when he was with us a few weeks ago off air, was sharing some of these facts and figures about what happens if the shoe was on the other foot. We'll get to that in just a moment. It's 8:34, 47. Bill Colley with you as well this morning on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. And so you came across these facts and figures, and you were sharing them with me off air. And we planned to get to this a few weeks ago, and things have just gotten so busy.
We have so much fun around here. We do not have enough time to cover all the subjects. Here is the new immigration laws. So let's just go down through them. There's 10 items they have listed here. There will be no special bilingual programs in the school systems. All ballots will be in the nation's language. In other words, in the United States, everything's going to be printed in English. All government business will be conducted in the native language, English. Non-residents will not have the right to vote no matter how long they have been here. That's non-residents. Non-residents will never be able to hold a political office. Foreigners will not be a burden on the taxpayer. No welfare, no food stamps, no health care, no government programs of any kind, and anyone who is a burden on the taxpayer will be deported. Foreigners can invest in the country, but they must be an amount equal to 40 times, whoops, I said that wrong. Let's go back and do that again. Make sure you got your hearing aids in, and if not, contact
Mount Harrison Audiology.
That's the place. Thank you. Okay. You can invest in the country, but the amount must be at least 40,000 times the daily minimum wage. Okay? And in the United States, it's $7 an hour on an 8-hour day. That's $56 a day, and 40,000 times that will do the math. That's a lot of investment. If foreigners come here and buy land, their options will be restricted. Certain parcels, including waterfront properties, are reserved for citizens only. Foreigners may have no protests, no demonstrations, no waving of the foreign flag, and no political organizing. No bad-mouthing our president or his policies. Those who are guilty will be deported. If you do come to this country illegally, you will be actively hunted and, when caught, sent to jail until your deportation can be arranged. All assets you have in your possession will be taken from you. Now, does that sound a little strict and a little harsh and a little bit too over the top and a little too mean and not politically correct? These are the immigration laws currently in effect in the nation of Mexico.
So if you're thinking about hopping the border and going there to work,
you better not go that direction. You better, and maybe that helps explain how come so many of them want to be on this side of the line, not down there.
And of that $20 billion that is paid out to these people on a yearly basis by American taxpayers through welfare, how much of that, because I know this when I go to the grocery store some days and I go up to that service counter and I think it's remittance day, it's usually at the on payday, and you usually find a long line, and you know where that money is being wired to.
Yep.
So it's directly from the pockets of hardworking Americans, and then it is sent down across the border to somebody on the other side. And all we're using this for is number one, these people are potential votes for the Democrat Party because of the free lunch, and number two, it's a safety valve for the Mexican government.
Well, and there was an article, I thought I found it about the same time I found this little expose on Mexican immigration laws. One of the cities just across the border in Mexico, and I apologize, I cannot now find the name of that city. Shame on me. But they are angry. They are coming. I think it's south of the Arizona border. Okay, and they're coming to Arizona and screaming and yelling at the state of Arizona. Your immigration laws are punitive and prohibitive, and they're having an adverse effect upon our province, our state, because those people that used to come to Arizona and earn all that money and send it back to Mexico can't do that anymore, and so you're dumping a huge burden on the citizens of our little state. And boy, I wish I could remember where that was.
It might actually force them to find a better form of government.
Yes, and we think that this is unfair of you, Arizona, and United States of America, to do that to these people because now we have to take care of them ourselves.
This is John Kerry's borderless world on the way.
And I'm sure everyone has seen the picture either on Facebook or YouTube or wherever these social media things are of the border fence that Mexico has built. Now, they refused to build one with the United States. Shame on us. We're terrible, awful people. But Mexico did build a border between Mexico and Guatemala. And it's a pretty sizable thing. I'd say we had at least 8 feet of chain link and then concertina wire over the top of it, and border patrols and towers, and we'll do that with Guatemala, but we're not going to do that with the United States. What's wrong with this picture?
I'm glad that the mainstream media keeps us abreast of all of this.
Oh boy, it's a good thing, isn't it?
We've got primary day 1 week from today.
1 week, time
Steve
to
Millington.
vote.
Yeah, Steve is going to tell you how to do that, in case you didn't know. It's coming up in a few minutes.
I'll tell you which way to vote also.
You're listening to News Radio 1310, KLIX and NewsRadio1310.com. Steve Millington is the chairman of the Twin Falls County Republican Party, and Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story. Steve Millington joining us in studio today. He is the chairman of the Twin Falls County Republican Party. Representative Stephen Hartkin is coming up following 9 o'clock news this morning. Bill Colley with you as well on News Radio 1310. KLIX and NewsRadio1310.com. A quick reminder, tomorrow morning between 8:30 and 9 o'clock, Dr. Jonathan Tripp will join us. The doctor will be talking about a medical issue. He also welcomes your telephone calls. They don't necessarily have to apply directly to the issue we're specifically talking about because, of course, in his line of work, he's hoping to help you out no matter what might be ailing you. And remember, they're looking for new patients. Still looking for new patients at Tripp Family Medicine, located on Fillmore Street, directly across from the main post office. And they can often see you on the same day. If you've got an issue and you call in the morning, they can sometimes see you by afternoon. Remember, life's too short not to feel good. So yesterday I was talking, Steve, with Randy Staples from Idaho Weekly Briefing.
Right.
And the old newspaper man was suggesting to me that unlike the primary that came out, the presidential primaries have been very anti-establishment. But he said from his perspective, he doesn't believe that the primary going on with state and local candidates next week will carry that same anti-establishment strain.
I don't think that it will. We haven't had quite as much angst in the state of Idaho against the anti-establishment. We basically in Idaho are many people east of here, the East Coast, anybody east of the Mississippi River would refer to us as basically anti-establishment to begin with.
Right.
And so we kind of already have that label painted on us, whether we are or not. But that's be a good debate, wouldn't it? But anyway, we're kind of painted into that corner already. So it's not really so much that we are totally anti-establishment. Perhaps a better definition would be anti-incumbent. Now, if we have an incumbency problem, then I can see where a lot of people would vote for a challenger in many separate races because they are upset with the quote incumbent, but not perhaps the establishment.
We see the anti-establishment strain with Trump and Sanders on the national level, but it didn't translate into serious challengers for our two members of the House of Representatives or
Or
Senator
Senator
Crapo.
Crapo. It really didn't. Simpson has a challenger. I think he has a challenger in the primary. He has an opponent in the general election in the fall.
These people haven't raised any money.
No, and Labrador has a challenger in the general election, and Senator Crapo has a challenger in the general election. So, and that's kind of, we'll see a lot of um, Democrats show up for the general election, but we don't see too many challengers against seated incumbents in the primaries, which is an interesting thing. We do have a couple of challenges in local races. Um, Representative Steve Hartgen has a challenge in the primary election. I don't think the other, there's one other. Maxine Bell is being challenged by Reggie Stearns, for her legislative seat. I don't think any of the other people have challenges in the primary elections. Many of them have challenges in the general election. Two other races that are of interest to me because I'm in Legislative District 23, which is the far west end of Twin Falls County and Elmore County and Owyhee County. Um, Rich Wills is being challenged by Christy Zitto, and Pete Nielsen is being challenged by Megan Blanksma. Now, there's a third person in that uh, Pete Nielsen, Megan Blanksma race. I'm sorry, I can't even remember his name.
And we were talking off air about him. I've contacted him, but I haven't had a response. But he has a job that is similar to the job that both your father and my father
Right.
did. Yeah.
He's employed by the school district as maintenance and grounds supervisor or superintendent or something. And a worthwhile and admirable occupation, by the way. Don't want to demean that in any way
Right.
whatsoever.
I know what it was like. I heard about it
Yep.
every day when my dad came
Yep.
home from dinner.
Same with me. And so, but he has not, he's not hardly surfaced anywhere. Now, a couple of things about local elections. Tomorrow night, Wednesday night at 7 o'clock at the Twin Falls County West Planning and Zoning Conference Room. That's on the ground floor level on the south side of the building. The Twin Falls Republicans are hosting a candidate forum. So beginning at 7 o'clock, we have extended invitations to all the candidates to be present for a brief introduction, so to speak, and then some question and answer. And I have to kind of moderate that thing. It should be an interesting night. But we want to hear from all the candidates. We know that a couple of candidates have conflicts. They have told us already that they have conflicts and will not be to our meeting. They have another one they have to attend. But the rest of them have all indicated they will be there. That is Twin Falls County races, sheriff, commissioner, prosecutor, Legislative District 24, which is Hyder and Clow and Hartgen, and 25. Now, the 25 people are the ones that have the conflict. Jerome County is also hosting a candidate forum that same night. So most of the District 25 guys are going to be in Jerome for their meeting rather than in Twin Falls. We have extended invitations to the challengers from District 23. That would be Burt Brackett and Rich Wills and Christy Zitto and Megan Blanksma and Pete Nielsen. So we hope to have all of those people tomorrow night. It could be a long meeting, but we're going to try to move it along as fast as we can. They will be given a few minutes, 2 to 3 minutes of introductory comments, and then when the two people in that race have completed, we will have a short question and answer, and then we'll go to the next race and do it again until we get through. And if there's time remaining, then we may take questions in general for any of them for people in the audience. And that's once again is tomorrow night, 7 o'clock at the Twin Falls County West Planning and Zoning Conference Room.
We have a caller with us. It's 10 minutes from 9
Good.
o'clock. Caller, you're on KLIX.
Hey, Steve, I have a question for you.
Uh-oh, now I'm in trouble.
Hey, as bad as Californistan is in a lot of things, when we lived there in a prior life, they had a really, really good um, ballot initiative and candidate flyer that was sent out. Idaho doesn't have anything like that. It's so difficult to find information on the measures, the candidates, and all that kind of stuff. You have to go 50,000 different places, and I was just curious why that is.
Thank you. That's a very interesting point, and it's an informational point that, frankly, we probably should spend a little bit more time on as a state leadership. I do not know whether there will be a candidate flyer of any kind prepared or made available for the primary election. They will have some kind of an issue for the general election in the fall so that it will compare the Republicans and the Democrats right down the page. But mostly Idaho has not done that. I think maybe that's one of those things that we've just not felt the need to do as a state. We may have to kind of change our idea on that and become a little bit more proactive in making sure that voters in general can have access to um, that kind of information because you just can't hardly get it from media or whatever. Now the local newspaper does have their opinion page where they our choice. I don't know whether they call it. I think it's labeled our choice, and they will endorse candidates for specific election offices, and sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes it's a death bell because not too many people uh, follow the thought process of the local newspaper. But the caller's correct. It does take some work. For example, wait a minute, before I get into my example, we're talking about voting. The early voting is currently available, and that is also at the Twin Falls County West building, except it's on the north side of the building. If you remember the old Magic Valley Hospital, the early voting takes place in that section that used to be referred to as the admittance office over by the emergency entrance. So you go in that main door right over there, and the early voting is set up right on that floor.
They pull your card or give an address, and then they give you
Yep.
your ballot for your.
You have to go in and show your identification card, your driver's license, and tell them, I'm Stephen Millington. I live in Buell, precinct number 2, and they will say, "Yep, you are, and you're registered. Sign right here." And then they hand me a ballot specific to my precinct. By the way, for all of you people out there listening in the big world, in Buell Precinct number 2, there is a gentleman running for precinct committee man again by the name of Stephen Millington. So I would enjoy very much all of you wonderful people in Buell Precinct number 2 to hurry and get out and vote for Stephen Millington. But you can, thank you. You can go. I have to leave a check now with the radio station for
Yes.
big, huge dollars. But go vote early. Don't let that. But be sure and vote. And don't. One of the privileges, responsibilities we have in this country is to choose our elected officials, and we do that by voting. And so, to just get angry and opt out to not vote is you just abdicated all of your citizenship responsibilities. That's not a good thing. Get out there and vote. You have an obligation to do that.
Caller, when the caller referenced, what people are looking for, I think, is a guide. Now, I criticize newspapers a lot, but I'll point this out. They generally, just before a big primary or an election, will have a guide with photographs and details. Some of this is online, too, as well.
That is correct. And I don't know what the publishing schedule is at the Times News, and we may well see that between now and perhaps Sunday edition, where they go through and just identify all of the various contestants. Keep in mind that in one of the things that's kind of a constraint to the Times News is that they have a large marketing area. So it's not just Twin Falls County, it's Jerome, it's Lincoln County, it's Blaine County, it's Minidoka County, it's Cassia County, Gooding, Camas. I mean, they cover kind of
Right,
a,
4,
a,
5, 6 counties.
a large geographic area, but not so large as far as population count is concerned. So it's kind of that'd be a tough thing to have to figure out. But they do have that. They've taken on that responsibility as being the primary newspaper in the area, and they should just kind of follow up on it.
If you're the Mini-Cassia bureau chief, no one looks over your shoulder.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Now, we have some interesting races in Twin Falls County, for example. We have contestants in the prosecuting attorney's race. We have contestants in both of the county commission races. Now, keep in mind for county commissioner, 2 out of the 3 positions are on the ballot every 2 years. Now, to facilitate that, one of the positions is for a 2-year term, the other one is for a 4-year term. So they go through this awkward rotation where you get a 2-year term, and then next election cycle, you're back on a 4-year term. So you get a 2 and then a 4 and a 4 and then a 2. And all of them go through that same rotation so that we always have 2 out of the 3 county commissioners on the ballot. So we have 2 county commissioner races on the ballot. We have the sheriff's race on the ballot. Now, the other county-wide offices are on the opposite rotation. So that will be 2 years from now. We will do clerk and treasurer and assessor and coroner, and I don't know. There might be one other one. I can't think of it right now. I'm sure there is, and somebody will call and correct me. But anyway, that's kind of the process that we go through. And it's interesting. There has been so much excitement, if that's the right word, not the right one, but there's so much excitement over the contested races that for the most part we haven't heard much about anything else. Are there ballot initiatives? I don't know of any. We do have an election for an Idaho State Supreme Court justice.
Right. There's 4 or 5
And
folks.
I think there's 4 people on that ballot, and that's one that is very critical. Give that one some careful thought.
We'll see you again in 1 week on primary day, actually.
Yes, we'll be back here to do it one more time. And remember, the early voting is only good through Friday of this week. As of Friday night, they have to shut down the early voting situation and get ready for the general or the primary election on next Tuesday.
I want to thank Steve Millington for coming by, chairman of the Twin Falls County Republican Party. Representative Stephen Hartgen up next following 9 o'clock news from Fox. Bill Colley with you on Top Story as well. It's 8:59 and 48.